Welcome back to The Deep Dive. I'm your host, and I'm joined by our resident expert. Today, we are taking a bit of a trip.
Yeah, a fairly surreal one, honestly.
Very. I want you to picture this. You're in northern Kentucky. You've just driven past the Cincinnati airport. You go past a concrete plant up a hill, and you walk into this sprawling, incredibly high-tech facility.
It looks very slick, very professional.
Exactly. But the first thing you see in the lobby isn't a piece of modern art. It's not a standard historical artifact. It is a triceratops.
And it's not just a triceratops standing there eating ferns, which would be normal for a museum.
Right, that would make sense. No, this triceratops is wearing a saddle.
A beaten leather English riding saddle.
Like someone just hopped off it after a quick afternoon gallop.
It's an image that really sticks with you.
Yeah.
And this is, of course, the Creation Museum, founded by Ken Ham. And the source material we're looking at today, Charles P. Peirce's book, Idiot America, points out that the saddle isn't just a quirky decoration.
No, it's a manifesto.
It really is. The message is basically, we are taking the dinosaurs back from the evolutionists.
They are pitching a literal reality where humans and dinosaurs coexisted in the Garden of Eden, which paints this wild picture where Noah, during the flood, presumably had to figure out how to load a pair of teenage T-Rexes onto a wooden boat.
Without them eating the zebras.
Right, or sinking the ark. But before we get into the heavier philosophy of all this, we have to talk about the wax figures.
Oh, yes. The Adam exhibit?
You pointed this out in the notes, and I had to double-check it. So there is an exhibit of Adam before the fall of man.
Right, reclining by a waterfall.
Looking peaceful. And since this is the Garden of Eden, before sin, before clothes were invented, he is completely naked. But here's the kicker. He has no penis.
Which is such a striking contradiction to the museum's own stated mission.
How so?
Well, they claim to be built entirely on biblical literalism, and Genesis is very clear on this point. It says, they were naked and unashamed.
Huh.
But here, modern family values or, censorship completely overrides the very scripture they claim is infallible. They edited Adam to make him safe for the minivan crowd.
It's like they photoshopped the Bible.
Exactly. And that contradiction is the perfect launch pad for what Peirce is talking about in the book. Our mission today isn't just to chuckle at plastic dinosaurs. We are diving into his concept of Idiot America.
And when you hear that title, Idiot America, it sounds aggressive.
It does. It sounds like an insult.
Right, like he's just calling the country stupid.
But he's not. And that is the most crucial distinction we need to make right off the bat. Peirce is very clear. Idiot America is not a place where people are stupid.
Okay.
There are plenty of smart people. Idiot America is a place where stupidity is treated as a virtue.
Treated as a virtue. That's a strong claim.
It's a culture where the gut, your immediate emotional reaction to something, is valued more than the brain. It's a place where having expertise or specialized knowledge actually makes you suspicious to people.
So it's essentially a war on expertise.
Precisely. It's the breakdown of the consensus that knowledge is actually a good thing. So our deep dive today is figuring out how we got here. How did we move from the Enlightenment values of the founders guys like James Madison,
Who are obsessed with reason and intellect.
right? How did we get from them to a culture where a museum can put a saddle on a dinosaur, present it as history, and have millions of people look at it and say, yeah, that feels right?
To understand that, we have to look at the rules of the game. Peirce lays out what he calls the three great premises of Idiot America.
And these function almost like the laws of physics for this new reality. Once we walk through these, you're going to start seeing them everywhere.
Let's hit the first great premise.
Premise 1. Any theory is valid if it sells books, moves units, or soaks up ratings.
So the commercialization of truth.
Exactly. In this system, validity isn't determined by peer review or fact-checking. It's determined by the marketplace. If people buy it, it must be valid. The cash register is the only judge.
Which leads right into the second great premise.
Right. Premise 2. Anything can be true if someone says it loudly enough.
The volume over veracity approach. I feel like we see this every time we turn on cable news.
It's everywhere. And that sets up the third great premise, which Peirce argues is the most dangerous one. It's the one that really defines the gut.
Lay it on us.
Premise 3. Fact is that which enough people believe. Truth is determined by how fervently they believe it.
This is where the gut really takes over the steering wheel. And Peirce describes the gut in pretty harsh terms.
He calls the gut a moron.
Blunt.
Very. But his point is that the gut reacts based on fear, ancient prejudices, and what feels good. It doesn't process data. It processes emotion.
So in Idiot America, if something feels right to the gut, it gets the exact same respect as something that actually is right factually.
Yes, and Pierce gives a perfect example of these three premises working in harmony: the NAFTA superhighway.
Oh, the superhighway. This is a classic case study for those listening who might not remember this panic.
Or if you've successfully blocked it out.
Right. There was this widespread belief a few years back that a massive highway was being secretly planned. We're talking 4 football fields wide.
A total concrete behemoth.
And the theory was it would slice right through the middle of the U.S., erasing our borders and merging us with Mexico and Canada.
Into a North American Union.
Exactly. But here's the reality check. It didn't exist.
There was no plan for a road 4 football fields wide.
I mean, there were some trade groups in Texas discussing logistics and widening some existing roads.
Sure, mundane infrastructure stuff.
Yeah.
But the superhighway, as described, it was a phantom, a ghost story.
But under the rules of Idiot America, the facts just didn't matter. Premise. 2 kicks and loudness. You had media figures, specifically Lou Dobbs on CNN at the time, shouting about this every single night.
And then premise 3 takes over fervent belief. People were terrified. They were calling their local congressman. It became a real political reality.
That's the crazy part to me. Candidates for president of the United States were asked on debate stages where they stood on the superhighway.
They had to formulate actual policy positions on a hallucination, because the gut of the electorate demanded it.
It dragged the mainstream discourse completely down to its level. If enough people believe the moon is made of cheese, candidates suddenly need a dairy policy for lunar exploration.
That's the power of the gut. Now, Pierce introduces a specific character type that really thrives in this environment. He calls them the cranks.
But he distinguishes between the historical noble crank and the modern version, right?
He does, and it's a really important distinction because Pierce actually has a lot of affection for the old school cranks. He introduces us to Ignatius Donnelly.
The Prince of Cranks. I love the description of this guy. He was a 19th century politician, a failed town builder, but he had this restless energy.
He wrote these massive, dense books.
Yeah, he claimed Atlantis was real and was the source of all human civilization.
He also wrote a book called Ragnarok, arguing that the gravel covering the Earth wasn't from glaciers. He said it was deposited by comets hitting the planet.
Okay, so scientifically, he was completely wrong.
Comprehensively wrong. But here's the key difference. Donnelly was an outsider, and he actually did the work.
He sat in the Library of Congress for hours.
Right. He was trying to challenge the mainstream with his own research. He represented that wild frontier spirit of the American imagination. He was honest in his wrongness.
So how is that different from the pundits spinning wild theories today?
Today, we have what Pierce calls the charlatan. The difference is the modern crank doesn't stay on the fringe.
Because of the media.
Exactly. The media industrial complex, cable news, talk radio, the internet, they need endless content. So they validate these fringe voices instantly. If a crank gets on TV, they are immediately presented as an expert.
Without needing any actual expertise.
Right. A charlatan is basically just a crank who sold out. When a crank succeeds too well and enters the mainstream without being tested, our collective imagination suffers.
Because we aren't being challenged to think about Atlantis. We're just being sold a product that confirms what our gut already feels.
Exactly. And the engine driving this, according to Pierce's timeline, is the media landscape that emerged in the late 80s. This is where the war on expertise got weaponized.
He specifically points to the repeal of the Fairness Doctrine in 1987.
Right. Before that repeal, broadcasters had a legal obligation to present both sides of controversial issues. You couldn't just have one guy screaming into a microphone for an hour without providing some balance.
But once that guardrail was gone, conservative talk radio exploded.
It shifted the entire format of our national dialogue. We moved away from thesis and antithesis, actually debating to find the truth, and moved entirely towards simply choosing up sides.
It became team sports.
Not information.
The source mentions G. Gordon Liddy to illustrate how low the bar sank.
Yes.
For context, Liddy was involved in Watergate. He was a convicted felon.
A man who once proposed firebombing a think tank. He advised assassinating a journalist.
Not a great track record.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, in the mid-90s, the New Media Conference gave him a Freedom of Speech Award.
And keep in mind, this is a man who used his radio show to advise his listeners on how to shoot federal agents.
He specified headshots, right?
Yes. He told his audience that federal agents wear Kevlar vests, so you have to aim for the head.
That is actively inciting violence.
It is. But under the first great premise, if it sells, it's valid, Liddy was treated as a hero by his industry. He had ratings.
The fact that he was declaring war on law and order didn't matter. The gut loved the anger, so the market rewarded the anger.
Which brings us to a term TV producers use for the pundits they bring on to stir up this anger. It's a pretty gross term, but it's memorable.
Street meat.
Street meat. It really captures the disposability of these people. They're desperate to be on air. And Pierce outlines the 3 rules for modern punditry.
Let's hear them.
Rule 1, never be dull. Rule 2, embrace willfully ignorant simplicity. Rule 3, ignore facts when convenient.
It's the rise of inexpertise.
That is the perfect word for it. In this environment, if you actually know too much about a complex topic, say stem cell research or climate change, you become suspicious.
You're an elitist.
Right. You're talking down to people, but if you know nothing and just shout about how a topic feels, the gut trusts you completely. You're viewed as authentic.
So we have the premises, we have the media machine, and we have the inexperts. Let's look at where this war on expertise actually hit the ground. The courtroom.
This is essentially the climax of Pierce's argument, the case of Kitzmiller v. Dover.
This happened in Dover, Pennsylvania, around 2004. The local school board tried to introduce intelligent design into the biology curriculum right alongside evolution.
We should probably pause and define intelligent design, or ID, because its proponents claim it's hard science.
Is it? Or is it just creationism in a cheap suit?
Pierce argues it is exactly that, a rebranding exercise. You have to remember the context. The Supreme Court had already banned teaching creationism in public schools back in the 80s.
The Aguirre decision, they said you can't teach religion as science.
Right, so the proponents needed a new strategy. They couldn't explicitly say God created the world anymore.
So they basically did a find and replace on their philosophy.
Literally. They came up with intelligent design. The idea is that life is simply too complex to have evolved naturally, so there must be a designer.
But they don't actually name the designer.
No, it's a wink and nod situation. It could be aliens, it could be a time traveler, but it's definitely God.
And Pierce points to something called the Wedge document.
Yes. This was a leaked internal memo from the Discovery Institute, which was the main think tank pushing intelligent design. The memo explicitly stated that their goal was to defeat scientific materialism and replace it with a theistic worldview.
So it was a religious and political goal from the start, not a scientific one.
Exactly.
But the best part of this trial, and this honestly plays out like a scene from a legal thriller, was the smoking gun they found in the biology textbook.
The book was called Of Pandas and People?
Right. So the lawyers representing the parents who were suing the school board managed to get a hold of the early drafts of this textbook.
And this is where the rebranding strategy was exposed undeniably. In the early drafts, the ones written before the Supreme Court banned creationism, the book used the word creationists constantly.
Creationists say this. Creationists believe that.
Right. But then the Supreme Court ban happens. They need to scrub the book to make it legally compliant.
So they run a word processor command. They try to replace creationist with design proponents.
But they missed one.
They missed one. And the result was this incredible linguistic Frankenstein. The lawyers found a word that was just a botched copy-paste job.
See design proponentsists.
See design proponentsist. It sounds like a glitch in the matrix.
It is literally the missing link between creationism and intelligent design. It proved beyond a doubt that ID wasn't some new scientific theory emerging from fresh data. It was creationism in a disguise, trying to sneak past the First Amendment.
So you have this high-stakes trial, and you have the judge, Judge John E. Jones III. Now, if you were the conservative school board, you were probably feeling pretty confident about this judge.
On paper, absolutely. Judge Jones was a lifelong Republican. He was a churchgoer, and he was appointed by George W. Bush.
The assumption, based entirely on the third premise of Idiot America, was that because he was on their team, he would automatically rule in their favor.
Because in Idiot America, everything is purely partisan. There are no neutral arbiters.
But that's not what happened.
Not at all. Judge Jones took his job very seriously. He sat there for weeks listening to actual biologists, paleontologists, theologians, and he realized very quickly that he wasn't judging a scientific debate.
He was judging a marketing scam.
Exactly. And his ruling was absolutely blistering.
So write down the policy.
He did. He called the school board's actions breathtaking inanity. He saw through the charade completely and ruled that intelligent design was religious, not scientific, and therefore unconstitutional to teach in a public school science class.
And the reaction from the public to a judge just doing his job?
It was incredibly ugly. He received death threats. He and his family actually required U.S. Marshal protection. Pundits went on TV and called him a fascist, an activist judge.
Why? Just because he didn't follow the popular will.
That's exactly why. In Idiot America, if enough people believe something, premise 3, it should be treated as fact. Jones was criticized for not bowing to the majority opinion of the local town.
Even though the judiciary is specifically designed to protect the law, not popularity.
Right. He refused to let the gut overrule the Constitution.
It is a heavy story.
Oh.
We've got dinosaurs with saddles, phantom superhighways, radio hosts calling for headshots, and a federal judge needing bodyguards over a biology textbook.
It's a lot to take in.
So zooming out, what does this all mean for us?
Well, Pierce brings the conversation back to James Madison. Madison was terrified of factions.
Groups driven by passion rather than reason?
Exactly. Madison believed that for a republic to actually function, the citizenry had to be educated. They had to be able to tell the difference between a carnival barker and a statesman.
He famously warned that a popular government without popular information is but a prologue to a tragedy or a farce.
And Pierce seems to be arguing that we are currently living in both. We've blurred the lines. We've allowed the techniques of salesmanship, loudness, repetition, emotional appeal to completely take over our search for truth.
When we declare war on expertise, when we decide that knowing things makes you elite and untrustworthy, we leave ourselves vulnerable.
Vulnerable to anyone with a loud microphone and a product to sell to the gut.
But the source material does make a point about imagination. We don't want to kill the American imagination.
Oh, absolutely not. We love the cranks. There's nothing wrong with dinosaurs with saddles as pure entertainment. There's nothing wrong with Ignatius Donnelly dreaming about Atlantis.
That imagination is vital.
It's deeply American. The danger only comes when we mistake the show for reality.
The danger is when we are asked to ride those dinosaurs to work.
Precisely. The danger is when we lose the ability to distinguish between a crank who expands our minds and a charlatan who is just exploiting our gut for profit.
And that is the challenge for you, the listener. To enjoy the show, enjoy the spectacle, but always check the saddle before you climb on.
And perhaps occasionally listen to the actual experts, even if they aren't as loud or entertaining as the guys shouting on the radio.
A novel concept indeed. But here's a final thought for you to chew on. Something Pierce's book predates, but feels incredibly relevant right now. If the media landscape of the 90s built Idiot America, what happens when you add social media algorithms to the mix?
That's a terrifying thought.
Algorithms are literally designed to feed the gut. They prioritize outrage, they reward loudness, and they create echo chambers where fervent belief is the only metric that matters. They're essentially supercharging the 3 great premises on a global scale.
Taking the war on expertise and automating it.
Exactly. So the next time you see a wildly popular post that just feels undeniably true to your gut, ask yourself, are you looking at reality? Or are you just staring at another triceratops with a saddle? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.